Now I want to get into this. The next two slides are, as I was wandering the room today, I heard conversation about, are they really doing the work? Am I seeing the work of a learning community when I observe my teams? So this is like a 4-star. This is something that when you work with your teams, you need to be absolutely transparent about what the work is. So the first one here says, what do we expect the kids to learn? So right now, those teams are working on the Common Core standards. They're unpacking those standards into clear targets. They're talking about what those standards look like in student work. That's, in my mind, the most important work they can be doing right now. What are kids going to be expected to do to show mastery of this standard? That's all part of question number 1. You'll have teams working on pacing, about how long will Unit 1 take, or Chapter 1. They're having those conversations. They're talking about making it viable, knowing that they're going to have to add in some time because not all the students are going to get it at the same time and in the same way. So it's that guaranteed and viable curriculum. Again, spending time clarifying what these standards mean, looking at it in student work so that absolutely every teacher is clear. This is what's most important in Unit 1. Here's what the kids have to do, and here's what it looks like. Take a look at question number 2. How do you know that they've learned it? You'll have teams working on the common assessments, the quick checks for understanding. Essentially, teachers will be working on a couple of targets, and what good teachers do is they check to see if the kids have it. All right? They're informing their practice, knowing if they, asking themselves, can I go on, or what else do I need to do? That's all part of question number 2. Your benchmark assessments, those 3 times a year dipstick checks that the district is looking at, are the kids making appropriate progress over time? So teams will be studying those assessment results. They'll be analyzing the results of assessments, and I'm going to show you how to do that a little in just a few minutes. Also, number 3 is the big ticket here. You can do question number 1 really well and question number 2 really well, but if you don't do question number 3, it's not going to matter, all right? It's not going to matter. What are you doing for additional time and support for your kids? 27 years ago, when I was a first grade teacher in Havre, Montana, and school-wide title school, if kids were struggling in my classroom, I'm not proud to say this, but it's the absolute truth. The first thing I was thinking is, well, where am I going to send them? Who's going to help them? All right? Now, that was true of the school when I became the principal as well at Mountain Meadow Elementary School. And what we realized as a staff is the kids most in need were receiving help from people that were hired, paraeducators, maybe a week or 2 before school started, had very little training, and that's where we were sending the kids that were struggling the most. And we had to put our arms around that as a staff, saying, we've got to turn this thing upside down. Some of the paraeducators, oh yeah, you could have given them a teaching certificate, but really looking at the first person when a kid is struggling, you need to look at, it's a mirror check, going back to what else can I do? How else can I differentiate for this kid before you ever want to send them somewhere? The next piece is that pyramid of intervention. Now, the pyramid of intervention can be the teacher in the classroom, some grouping strategies you're utilizing. Every classroom still needs to have that kidney table where you get to pull the kids back and do some reteaching, helping them along the way. It can also be a team strategy, and that's what most of our buildings have. And there's no one right way to do this. You work with your staff to put this in place. We have teams that give kids additional time and support during their math instructional block. Say it's for math. They look at their common assessment, they might look at their quick checks for understanding and determine, you know what, let's break these kids apart. Let's stop new instruction for 2 days. Let's break these kids apart. Someone takes the group that's struggling. Someone takes that middle group, and someone takes the high group or the kids that have mastered the standards, and need the extensions. And then they reassess, giving them the information about, can we go on? There are schools that have the 30 to 40 minute additional time and support block at the end of the day, basically doing the same thing. Somewhere in the assessment process, they have information, tells them what they need to do with these kids, what the adults need to do, all right? So that's part of that pyramid of interventions. Maybe it's parents that you have coming in and they're giving kids directed support provided with the instructional practices that you're helping them with, all right? So the parents fit in. Maybe it's fifth graders that are coming down to second grade for 5 minutes in the morning to help kids with their reading. That's that pyramid of interventions. Question number 3 is also where RTI, or response to intervention, fits. Question 3 is also where the PBIS work, the positive behavior instructional supports. We all have kids in our school that are struggling to learn, and it has absolutely not a thing to do with their ability to learn. Right? Maybe it's attendance issues, could be drug and alcohol issues, could be the child just needs more structure, needs that adult to check in and check out with every single day. But that's where that PBIS work fits. Or question number 4, what are you doing about kids that are learning? How are you making every classroom rigorous? What does that look like in your instructional practices as well as the assessment practices? When my daughter Taylor was in 7th grade, she brought home this social studies assessment, and across the top it said best in class. And she's like, Mom, the teacher told me I had the best score in the class. Now, while I was proud of her, I was taking a look at the assessment. Every question was written at the information only level, all right? And Taylor's a memorizer, so it was just like she memorized the information, got a great score, and she was moving on. Now, until we laid out with the teachers, just went back to what we all had in our pre-service work, Bloom's taxonomy, and this question stems that are part of each of those levels, and asking the teachers, take the same common assessment and let's analyze it, and let's make sure that this is a balanced assessment, that we're asking our kids to think. Is there some portion of the assessment that will be some information only? Yes, but that should not be the entire assessment. So making sure that your instructional practices match the rigor in the assessment. If you have a rigorous assessment and your instructional practices don't match that, you're basically just redistributing grades. You're going to have more kids failing, all right? So I want you to take a look at this slide. This slide really paints out the work that's layered under each of these questions. How would you use this slide with your staff or in your system? Do you think that your teachers and your administrators are absolutely clear where things fit?